Hello and welcome to episode 245 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill, and I think based upon the weekend, let's start with college football.
Yes, indeed. You can start
And
with your game. You're good.
I'll start with my Oklahoma State Oklahoma game, and I think Oklahoma State is 19-91 in that series since its inception. And so whenever things start going south in that game, I just start being ready to accept it. So I'm pleasantly surprised when they win. And when they were losing by 9 points in the third quarter, and I knew that would be the matchup again next week. I said the worst thing could possibly happen is they lose to Oklahoma 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. They made big plays, and they won the game. And despite almost having a typical Oklahoma win when the guy ran 56 yards down the field, and I thought that would be it. He would run in the end zone. But then they stopped him 3 incomplete passes and a sack. So next week is Oklahoma State Baylor. And I got to hope if they beat Baylor, they would have beaten an 8 and a 10 in 2 consecutive weeks. And hopefully that's enough to get them in the college football playoff. But I'm also wise enough to know that if Alabama beats Georgia, they'll both probably get in and Oklahoma State won't get in.
Yeah, I think unless you're an Alabama fan, you were rooting heavily for Georgia.
Yes.
Or I guess if you're a giant SEC head. But, this has got to be, the Oklahoma State game's got to be one of the biggest ones in a long time, too, as far as, it pushes them into top 5 at the worst, right?
Yeah, they should be 5.
Because we're going to have Alabama.
Then Cincinnati's got to play Houston, which to me, that could go either way. I like Dana Holgorsen as a coach. I think he's always got a good offense. I think he'll put points up. It's a question whether he can hold Cincinnati down.
Yeah, I wish. Back to the Georgia-Alabama game, you kind of wish Georgia's offense looked a little bit better throughout the year. Because, I don't know. Alabama just keeps squeaking stuff out.
45 yesterday.
Yeah. Well, along with...
Big shout out to Michigan, though.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Michigan. Yeah, that's a big monkey to get off your back.
Jim Harbaugh's first ever win as Michigan coach.
Ryan Day's first ever loss to a Big Ten team.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy, isn't it?
It just, yeah.
It's stops a streak of 8 in a row, and I think it was 15 out of 16. So, it's just, they played well. They played well from the onset. He went right down the field on the first possession and scored. And it was like football weather, too, in the snow, sleet. It was fun watching it. I really enjoyed watching that game.
It was really cool to see. Because, when you said like 15 of the last 16, at least we lived in Ohio when it was at least more of a rivalry.
Yeah.
When it felt like it was, either way, or that, Michigan was the better team, or you go back to like Schembechler and the history of the program. It's sad that it had gone as bad as it was. But now Michigan, again, they're in the driver's seat as well.
Yeah. So it could be a really interesting 4-team playoff. Well, let's see.
We could be looking at Georgia, Michigan, Oklahoma State, Cincinnati.
Yeah, we could.
And where's Notre Dame in all this? Are they?
Well, they're done. They finished 11-1. The last 2 teams they played had a combined were each 3-9.
Yeah.
So they need help. But again, I've just seen this thing so many times. It's hard to say, these biases on this committee and everything, and who's on the committee, and who's protecting each other on the committee, and who's voting for who, and everything else. That's why 4 teams is just a bad number. If it was 8 teams, I'd be much more excited now because we know the 8 teams that were pretty much have a good idea. The 8 teams that were in, it'd be pretty interesting.
It would. And maybe there'd be 1 or 2 teams that are on the fringe, but now we literally have basically everybody but Georgia on the fringe, right?
Michigan. Michigan has to beat Iowa.
It has to beat Iowa. But it's hard to
I think
imagine.
they will, but I mean, Michigan just playing so well right now. We'll see.
Because it's really hard to imagine Georgia getting blown out by Alabama right now.
It really is.
And then in those circumstances, you have to understand that as the unbeaten SEC team, even if they lose to Alabama in a close game, they're getting in.
Yes.
So Georgia seems like the only lock right now.
I would say so.
And we forgot to mention that Oklahoma State also knocked Oklahoma's coach out.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley is, it's not confirmed, but there's a lot of different sources reporting it that he's going to take the Southern Cal job. And as you and I talked offline, that's to me, that's a good job.
Yeah.
With NIL being in LA, the Pac-12 being down, he has a chance to go there, recruit, and really make some good inroads, as opposed to going with Oklahoma to the SEC, which would be a much harder job.
Much harder.
But if you could bring back Southern Cal and you got all the advantages of being in Los Angeles, it could be just a great job. So,
yeah, like I said, for me, I mean, NIL alone, like if you're recruiting, you've got, all these Hollywood alum, you have a lot more businesses in LA, Snoop Dogg's
a variety,
yeah.
A lot of entertainment options.
It's a better place to make your brand. And like you said, Norman, Oklahoma going into the SEC, which is going to be a nightmare for him, I think.
I do too. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. And I'll be very curious to see who takes the Oklahoma job. I know today the other rumor was that the coach of Louisiana is going to become the new coach of Florida.
Huh. Okay.
And I think he was a Clemson assistant, and before that he worked for Saban. So, I mean, that's pedigree. But, it's tough times. I mean, it's Florida and Florida State and Miami. None of them, and UCF, we have no schools in the state of Florida ranked in the top 25.
No.
For the first time in a bazillion years.
And usually it's 2 or 3 of those programs.
Yeah.
With another one right on,
And it really shows what kind of rebuilding year and recruiting year you have to do, and you've been losing all these recruits to different people. So it's interesting.
And sort of back to Lincoln Riley, I was thinking about the move from a worst case scenario position. I feel like if in 2 years he hasn't rebuilt USC, I don't think it hurts his brand as much as 2 years getting beat in the SEC. Like,
you could be right.
I don't think the shine would come off him as much. I think they'd be like, well, he tried to, rebuild a program that, had all these, despite the advantages, was coming in with the covered bear, yada, 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 as opposed to getting exposed in the SEC by, being a 500 Oklahoma team.
Yeah. On another note, yesterday, I was happy to see LSU win for Coach Ed last game.
It was nice to see.
Especially being Texas A&M. So I like that. And so Coach O goes out with a win. His team wins that game, becomes bowl eligible. He's not going to coach in the bowl. And he said he's not going to coach in 2022.
Well, luckily for him, there's enough sports networks and podcasts.
If people could understand him.
Yeah, if people could understand. I mean, I'm sure he'll get some opportunities, or maybe he really just wants to, spend a year off and reassess.
Yeah, I think so. So it'd be fun to see where this all goes.
But I will say, this college football season being as topsy-turvy as it has been, I've been much more excited and paid much more attention to it for some reason.
It's been a lot of fun. And there's some very exciting players. I think the Heisman's still wide open too.
Well, we haven't had, I guess technically the most consistent top quarterback prospect has been Pickett at Pitt, but nobody views him as like a future NFL star. And then all the other quarterbacks are sort of,
Yeah, so was that a Heisman moment yesterday when the Alabama quarterback brought them on a 97-yard drive down the field with less than a minute left?
It certainly could be, especially for lazy voters that don't really watch enough football.
Yeah.
I mean,
because he did not look good for 3 quarters.
No, he did not.
But that last drive, he looked really good. And then, of course, in the overtime, he looked really good too.
And once again, when you look at probably, the best team in college football consistently this year has been Georgia, and they've been doing it on the defensive side. it's almost, I mean, we've seen it with, Ndamukong Suh, J.J. Watt. Like, it's almost impossible for a defensive player to even get a sniff at a Heisman.
Yeah.
And everybody on that Georgia team has been so well. Like, even though they're probably the best unit in college football, it's hard to imagine any of them, getting a nod, even though maybe they should.
Yeah, I like the kid from Michigan yesterday at the 3 sacks too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some players on the defensive side should really definitely get a look. But I don't think they will. I think it'll be a quarterback again. I don't think it'll be a running back.
No, there's too many running backs that have all had, like, their own Heisman moment,
Yeah.
I mean, the Michigan guy against Ohio State, Michigan State guy a few weeks earlier. I mean, like you said, it's a lot of exciting players, a lot of exciting receivers, just not,
No, just not the right stage.
no.
So, but we got all these conference championship games next week, so I think these are the last games before they vote. So we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Well, we usually start with our NFL, and our Steeler moment can be really brief today because it would be more of a Steeler second than a Steeler moment as bad as they played today.
And that's about all they deserve today.
Yep.
But other teams, I mean, unfortunately, for everyone outside of the New England area, those Patriots, the pesky Patriots,
Yes.
they just whipped up on Tennessee 36-13. And I did watch a lot. I had that game on the second screen. And Tennessee had they dinked a field goal, they dinked an extra point so early on, but New England pulled away and they just looked really solid across the board. They're giving up like 11 points a game the last few weeks. And they play like a Bill Belichick team. And they got 2 running backs that can run the football down your throat at the end of games.
Mm-hmm.
And Mac Jones looks like, everything they said. Tom Brady 2.0.
Yeah, it's pretty fun, pretty interesting. And I'm glad I picked up the Patriots D for our fantasy team.
Yeah. And I have to say, like, when you watch certain teams, like, and I know other people have talked about it mainly because of the way the coach is behaving as well. The Patriots seem like a team that really likes being around each other, and they're having a lot of fun right now. Now, I know they won like 6 in a row, so that obviously helps. But even Belichick seems,
No, they are playing very, very well. The Buccaneers came back today against the Colts with Leonard Fournette having 4 touchdowns. So very, very good performance for them. But they gave up a lot of points.
It did. Their defense has been shaky all year. It was the question mark coming into the season, and it hasn't gone away. It's a weird one.
Yeah, the Packers are up on the Rams after forcing a fumble on about the 5-yard line.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers, bad toe and all, ran it in. Tonight we get the Ravens and the Browns. I'm expecting the Ravens to win handily.
They should. And speaking of which, I know it gets talked about a lot, but just because, I watched football today and I saw 3 more Baker Mayfield commercials, like...
Yes. Way too many.
I think it's a good concept, those commercials.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he does he's a much better commercial performer than he is on the field performer, sadly, for the Browns fans. Not for us, the Steeler fans. But,
Yes.
He's got enough charisma, and he seems like he's pulling off the commercials where he's not pulling off. I don't know. It's weird that he got all the love when he's never really put it together, He's
No,
a pro.
he really hasn't. And, the Browns still have not signed him. And I'll be curious to see what they do.
I realize I don't want to, toot the horn of the analytics community as I tend to bash them from time to time. But this is something I noticed, sort of organically, and then I actually randomly was looking at an article about it too, is that if you don't have, I'd say probably, in my opinion, like a top 12, top 14 quarterback, there's really no need to ever sign anybody long term. I mean, there's always the Heineke's and the Gardner Minshew's, and because those guys are pretty much average replacements,
Yeah, and sometimes they outperform their expectations.
Yeah, and every year there's going to be, especially moving forward, it looks like, You're going to have an Aaron Rodgers. You're going to have, a big, a Russell Wilson. Somebody's going to be on the block that you're going to be able to go out and get. You're going to have, the retread, the Daniel Jones probably next year, Baker Mayfield, like guys with starting experience that, fell out. You might have a Jalen Hurts on the, Jimmy G might be available next year. Like, it seems like unless you have a really top guy, that committing 4 or 5 years to anybody is just dumb. Because there's lots of, and again, I don't want to take anything away from an NFL quarterback. If you're a quarterback in the NFL, you're such a small percentage of the population can ever be as good as you are at that. But once you get past that, initial kudos for those people, you can probably go find a Teddy Bridgewater every year if you want.
Yeah. And there's a nice crew of quarterbacks coming out, but there's not a top 5 or even probably a top 10 pick, I don't think.
There will be based on draft and need position, but
yeah,
I don't think anyone will have them rated that way. But again, if you like somebody, you go get them. But they all seem to have a pretty big flaw in their, whether they're a one-year wonder, whether they're... Although, watching Mac Jones play the last few weeks, I couldn't help but think about Pickett from Pitt, who reminds me a little bit of Mac Jones,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One great year. Not the best athlete, not the best arm, but he seems to throw the football where it's supposed to be and make the right plays and not make a lot of mistakes.
He's very accurate.
And that seems to be really important.
Yeah,
be accurate.
I know you and I are hoping for a quarterback pick for the Steelers, so.
Yeah. Well,
they will have had watched him more probably than anybody else.
Oh, without a doubt. And again, if the Steelers end up picking, middle to mid-late of the first round, which is pretty much where they've been for the last decade, give or take, and he's sitting on the board, I would not mind them pulling the trigger on that.
No.
Because I'm assuming that, if Dwayne Haskins can't beat out Mason Rudolph, and we know what Mason Rudolph is, we know what Roethlisberger is, then they don't have a quarterback. And then I guess I've been doing weekly Super Bowl picks, but sadly I would pick either New England or Kansas City in the AFC.
Okay.
And I guess the Packers or the Cardinals probably at this point.
I don't think I could argue with any of those picks.
And I have
the Buccaneers just seem too unpredictable to me right now.
They do.
And they're giving up too many points.
But if they can start running the ball like this, and Antonio Brown comes back full healthy, Gronk looks like he's healthy again. If you get Goodwin, Evans, Gronk, everybody going, that's still a pretty formidable offense.
Yeah, and Fournette has been, I still have no idea why he got cut originally. I thought he was a great running back to begin with. And then they got him for nothing. Yeah,
it was a really poorly run organization for a long time. And I'm not saying that they aren't any better now, because maybe they're not. But, if you can get a top 5 talent on a team that doesn't seem to know what they're doing, I think you guys are going to pull that trigger on that.
Yeah.
Well, we just had some very exciting NBA news. DeMarcus Cousins is back.
No.
He signed a 1-year deal with the Bucks.
That's a good place for him.
It is.
That's a good place for him. I thought you could tell me he signed with the Lakers.
I wouldn't doubt it at this point. I feel like Milwaukee seems like they're really... I don't think Giannis is going to let shit go. And if things aren't looking like they're working out, then he'll be gone. But it seems like, honestly, since he went to New Orleans, it wasn't an attitude problem anymore. It was just, he was playing great with Anthony Davis. Then he ruptured the Achilles, and he just hasn't been the same since.
No. But he could be a great role player.
Yeah. And over the course of a long season, if you get you a couple, maybe you're down by 10 in the fourth quarter, you throw him in, he gets hot, maybe you squeak away a win, or, you're able to, rest a few more guys here or there.
Absolutely.
But before we talk about the good of the NBA, I guess we have to have a LeBron minute now since he seems to be doing something weird every week.
Yeah, I just think he's so frustrated because this is a team that, again, he was an architect building.
He was.
And it's not coming along the way that he had hoped it would. Although, you and I pointed out on numerous occasions, it's still early, and that's a lot of personalities.
And he's missed a lot of time.
He's missed a lot of time. And everybody's trying to find their way, and you really can't find your way on that team if he's not on the court.
No.
Because you have to find your way on that team with him on the court to define your role and how you relate to everybody else.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the meetings he, Davis, and Westbrook had where they had conversations across, margaritas sounded great, but,
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily translate. And I think, you look around the league and guys that were on their team, like Caruso, I saw somebody say that he looked like Jim Carrey from The Cable Guy, which is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
But Caruso's a great player.
He had a nice game for the Bulls last night.
Like, he's exactly what the Lakers need, and you had him,
Yeah.
And obviously, Tucker, Marcus, whatever, Tucker guy, he has not come on to play the role that I assume everybody thought he was when people were talking about getting like a high pick for him a few years ago. But you have all the stuff with China, and LeBron is, he is not getting stuck up. I mean, rightly so. He's getting, not stuck up for. The team's losing. He's not been as healthy this year. He did the Sam Cassell ball grab, which he got fined $15,000 for, which I know is, car change for LeBron, but just that move itself, I don't think we've seen anything.
It's demeaning for somebody of his status.
It is, and especially for, 37, 38-year-old LeBron. Like, if early on in his Cleveland days he did it, I could see it maybe, but it seems so out of character for him. And then he had those two fans thrown out for saying something, which we still don't know what was said, but I did, as I talked to you off air, I assumed it was a racially motivated comment. But Shannon Sharp said that he talked to LeBron and he would not reveal what was said, but that it had nothing to do with race. And then I'm wondering, you're letting fans get to you that aren't even saying anything, Again, I don't know what they said, but...
Weren't they Sacramento Kings fans?
Sacramento Kings fans, yeah.
If you're letting Sacramento Kings fans get to you,
and
let's not go to the Garden. You might lose your mind.
And you saw, like, the woman gave him, like, the push out your lower lip pouty face to LeBron. So it was sort of,
I saw that. As she walked off the court, that was pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, because I assumed we were going to see, enraged fan guy who was still, getting semi-dragged by security off the stage as he yelled terrible things. But, I have no idea what they said to him. But if it wasn't racially motivated, and they were completely calm and doing the pouty face out as they left. It's weird to see stuff like that get to LeBron right now.
Yeah, we'll see that as a meme and an emoji next couple of days, though.
Oh, I'm sure. I haven't looked for it, but it's got to be there.
It's got to be there. Her face was too, and she rubbed her eyes when she put her lips out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a classic.
It felt like she won that confrontation.
Yeah. But let's talk about the Suns and the Warriors. The two bright spots in the NBA.
Very bright spots.
Fun to watch. Those teams are fun to watch. I look forward to watching them play each other.
I'm very excited. I'm even without Clay, without Wiseman, I'm still very excited for this matchup.
I want to see the Book Curry thing, and I think it'd be interesting to see. And they're both really good guys too, and they're great shooters, and they're great players.
Yeah.
Just fun. I see how they bring it out in each other, see how it goes. But I'm just really enjoying watching the Suns and the Warriors.
I mean, they both 17-2, 17-3 respectively, which is, But, do you know who has the third best?
It's still November.
It is.
They're really playing well.
But who's the third best record in the NBA? With 14-6?
The Heat?
The Brooklyn Nets.
The Brooklyn Nets, okay.
They'd be the one in the East right now. I mean, yeah. And that's without Kyrie, and that's with James Harden looking... I don't know what you would say James Harden looks like right now.
an interesting line the other night: 14, 13, and 12,
Yeah.
which is an odd kind of a thing for him to have.
Yeah, he's still trying to find his feet and his place. And in the East also, the Wizards are still 13-7, probably coming slightly back down to earth. But what I like to see is the Bucks slowly getting healthier at 12-8, the team that just signed DeMarcus Cousins.
And I always like the Heat.
Yeah, the Bucks are just a really, really good team. And then while they are 500 right now, sitting in 10th place, which would put them in the play-in game, there's been some very negative Jason Tatum stuff coming out of Boston this year.
Very negative stuff. Yeah. Boston, I just think you might have to break that team up.
I think, the team they're ahead of right now at 10-10, although Joel Embiid's coming back after getting his ass kicked by COVID, so I'm glad to see him back. But
yeah, he missed 9 games.
I think the problem is if you were picking somebody based on how hard they play and, their attitude, what they do for the team, you would keep Jaylen Brown over Jason Tatum. But I think if you're talking about raw ability, you'd have to pick Tatum over Brown if you were going to break that duo up.
Yeah, it's just, just kind of different. It's just, that team's been around and they've been contenders and they've been pretenders and, where are they? What's their long-term play?
Yeah, their coach.
Sometimes you just have to look at what you got and see what you can cash in and start over again. Because it's a lot easier in the NBA because you only need 5 starters.
It's true. And sometimes, and I think this is a lesson the Sixers should have probably stuck with 2 years ago, just because you seemingly didn't win the trade on paper doesn't mean you didn't win the trade.
True.
Sometimes a couple is not a good couple. But they're good people, each of them, and they can both have a lot of success elsewhere, but that doesn't mean they're not both not better off where they are, apart than they were together.
Yeah.
And I think, that might be a Tatum, Brown, Marcus Smart. Like, you might just have to blow that whole team up.
That's what I'm thinking. It just might be the time.
Because 3 years ago, you were in
It's still early in the season, but, you've got to start thinking about these things now for cap reasons and everything else and maneuvering and seeing what you can get and see what kind of capital you can get.
I've always wondered, I know he says he doesn't want to leave, but apparently Tatum and Bradley Beal are like best buddies. And maybe I think Jaylen Brown would fit in really nice with the Washington Wizards and what they're building over there. Maybe there's a Brown to Washington.
They get some nice pieces from the Russ trade.
They did.
And so, they've got a nice nucleus.
And I think Jaylen Brown could step in the shoes of Bradley Beal and Bradley Beal vice versa. Maybe, if it's because said it could just be a chemistry thing. And I'm not even saying Brown and Tatum don't get along. I haven't heard that, but there's clearly some issues on the court and off the court with that team. And that's a team that was, an up-and-coming team 4 years ago in the conference finals when they had the year Kyrie got hurt, and they've been worse every year since. And now you got a new coach, and you're close to you're a game away from being the 14th best team in the East right now. And again, it is November, but
yeah,
it's not a good look.
No.
It's just not.
Switching gears for a minute, we'll talk about the Rays and Wander Franco. Big contract. And, it's one of those contracts just designed to demonstrate to the market that you're serious about talent. And it's a really premier young player. I don't know if he's a Fernando Tatis, but he's definitely looked pretty strong last year.
Very strong.
Pretty impressive for as young as he is. And when I was telling you offline, the contract's kind of interesting. It's like a $5 million signing bonus. It's like $1 million a year for 3 or 4 years before it ever gets up there. So they backdoored the contract so that either if they get a new stadium in Tampa or if they get a new stadium in Tampa and one in Montreal, that they'll have the revenue to come in and support that contract.
Yeah.
So it's also a message to both markets that, hey, we're investing in our players, so invest in us and build us a stadium. So it's a smart move. Yeah,
and at the same time, they're talking about getting Kluber from the Yankees in free agency.
Yeah.
Oh, they added him already officially.
They signed a 1-year deal.
Yeah. So I mean, then you're not only. I mean, you definitely look like you're committing. But
Yeah, I mean, you were close. I mean, you if you'd had a more pitching down the line last year with the team you had, you might have been in the World Series. But the things that they did just didn't work out. So they didn't have the pitching.
well, the AP poll came out. You're right. Oklahoma State sitting at number 5.
Michigan too.
So it's Georgia at 1, Michigan at 2, Cincinnati at 3, Bama 4,
Bama 4.
Oklahoma State, Notre Dame. And I think that's pretty much where it ends because everybody else has 2 losses. And it's hard to imagine anybody outside of those 6 creeping back in,
Yeah,
right?
that's pretty much what you got, unless all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
We get 3 upsets this next weekend.
Because after them, it's Ohio State, Ole Miss, Baylor, Oregon, Michigan State.
Yeah, and those are all 2-loss teams, and those are 2-loss teams, and one of the losses is really bad.
Really bad.
For each of those teams.
And like you said, number 6 Notre Dame sitting at 11-1, already done for the year. Georgia pretty much guaranteed a spot. And it's hard to imagine Oklahoma State, Michigan, and Cincinnati all losing in the same week.
I would say so.
I mean, based on this year, no, but it's still kind of hard to see.
Hey, next Saturday's going to be a fun day. That's what I will say.
Yes, it will. Well, I sadly don't have a food moment for everybody this week.
And nor do I. We haven't gone anywhere, and of course, Mom made a fantastic Thanksgiving dinner, so I mean, that would be my food moment. But entertainment moment, I'm watching Yellow Jackets on Showtime. I've watched the first 2 episodes and find it very intriguing. And I also started The Wheel of Time on, I guess it's Amazon Prime.
It's on Amazon Prime. Yeah, it's their big show until Lord of the Rings comes out.
And I think I watched the first episode, and I was really impressed with that. And I'm not a big fantasy person, but the story was good. The cinematography was fantastic. The acting was good, and I like this. Like I said, I like the storyline. So all those things were real positive.
Well, rolling right into another entertainment moment with fantastic cinematography. We watched the new Candyman movie. The Jordan Peele written and produced. I would say the bar. I mean, I know he was the writer, producer, and he didn't direct the film, but he was pretty heavily involved. He does such a good job with like the basic elements of filmmaking. Like it's one thing to set up a shot and professionally light it, but it's another thing to understand the psychology behind it all. You know, with color and angles, and he gets all that stuff down, and he creates a real mood and a real, you know. I do think a little bit like with Us, the story gets a little convoluted in Act 3, where it didn't all pull together for me, but it was a really cool watch, and a nice reboot of the Candyman franchise, which has been sort of a peripheral franchise, I would say. Because I think there's like 5 of those movies, but he never gets mentioned.
And we're both excited about the new Del Toro movie, right?
Oh, very much so. Antlers?
What's the name of it again?
Antlers?
No.
Oh.
The one with Bradley Cooper in it.
Oh, yeah. We just talked about it for 5 minutes offline.
I know.
It's the film noir one.
Bradley Cooper, Kate Blanchett, Rooney Mara.
Yeah. Something in the city? Something city? The Dark City?
I don't know.
But either way, I mean, you'll probably see a lot of promotion for it coming up. But if you like, especially like
we
the old...
apologize. We did talk about it. We apologize for not knowing the name of it, but you'll see that there's been a lot of advertising on it. It's only in theaters, and it starts December 17th.
And I'll do a preview entertainment moment. I'm going to start Yellowstone. I've just heard too many good things about it. I know they've got the new spin-off series coming, which is like the prequel.
One about the prisons.
With Sam Elliott and some other people in the Old West.
Oh, that prequel, yeah. And they've got another one from the same producers about running prisons.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I like Westerns, and I'm in need of a new show right now. We're watching the new Dexter. That's our other entertainment, but I don't know what to say about Dexter.
Well, the first episode of the new season of Yellowstone is tonight, correct?
Yeah. I mean, for a show to be that highly praised for as long as it has been, and for me not to even have given it a shot, I think is,
I agree. And I've been wanting to watch it, but Mom Mom's seen a couple episodes, and it's a little too violent for her.
Okay. But yeah, that's my. I'm going to watch some, and then I'll comment one way or the other if I'm going to continue watching and I'm into it, and I'll recommend it, or if it's something that just didn't cook me. But I'm going to watch at least a couple episodes this week because it looks interesting.
That's fair.
And I hope to have a food moment in the next week.
As do I.
It's just, Oh, and then this is my shout out to a non-sponsor, should be our sponsor. The company Bombas that makes socks.
Socks.
I ordered a pair of their slippers, right? It's like a house slipper, but it's almost like a thick sock with some rubber on the bottom, but it's kind of loose fitting, like a nice slipper.
Okay.
And there was a little tiny rip in the lining, which is almost like a real soft sweatshirt. So I sent them a picture. They immediately apologized. They're sending another pair in the mail. They said destroy this pair. They're not that bad. I just figured if I bought a brand new pair, they shouldn't have a rip in them. But it wasn't. I know with some companies, if you have an issue, they want to know everything. Like they were just immediately like, "That's our fault. That should never happen. We're sending out a new pair right away. Just destroy that pair because that doesn't represent our brand." And I think whenever you get great customer service, it's always nice to give them a little shout out.
Yeah, for sure.
Because again,
you like people that resolve things quickly as well.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, they were clear that this is not something they're going to send it to the. I sent them pictures, and they're going to send them obviously to the manufacturer. We're sending them right to everybody, but I've had times where I've gotten a faulty thing, and I feel like I'm on trial for murder, trying to explain why I didn't do anything to this product. And it's nice when it's just responded. They take responsibility, and they, like you said, alleviate the situation right away. And again, the Bomba socks are really nice too. If you ever need socks,
Yeah, I've had the socks before, but you're saying this slipper is pretty good.
Slipper's great for like a nice. It's like a lightweight. It sounds silly,
More
but
around the house.
yeah,
In the wintertime, yeah.
because it's loose. It's like a loose sock with a little more structure than normal, and then it's got the little rubber feeties on the bottom, which is helpful for hardwood floors like we have.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Then it's like a really lightweight sweatshirt or sweatpant material on the inside, and they're machine washable and all that good stuff. So, if you're looking for like a lightweight walk around the house, keep your toesies warm, look up the Bomba ones, and they're like $40, so they're not even that bad priced.
All right, let me check them out.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, get ready to watch some great college football next weekend and root for Oklahoma State for me.
Yeah. So until next week.